Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Good morning, Alman. Just coming off a good weekend, good time with family and everything. So yeah, it's a good Monday morning.
Perfect. And we've had this planned in for a week. And obviously, thank you for being part of the podcast, which we've only just started actually. So it's going to be called Microsoft Partner Journeys. And given your position, given what you've done, and you're going to be able to tell that journey in a minute, I thought you'd be a good guest. So I suppose starting off, just because we're trying to create an environment where people in the Microsoft journey are very connected, tell us a bit about yourself, your journey within the Microsoft stack or technology as a whole, and how that passion came about and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So my tech journey and my Microsoft journey started really at kind of the same time. I started working for a managed services provider. They were a Microsoft partner, and so I kind of started at that ground level of being an engineer, doing a little bit of pre-sales, but being an engineer, deploying Microsoft servers and Microsoft services. And so at the time that I started, uh, the M365 stack was still kind of getting off the ground. So we were mostly focused on-premise technologies, managing Windows servers, that type of thing. And so I dove really deep into the Windows Server stack, learning every role and different use cases, and got to go really deep into some virtualization. The company I worked for was a data center and hosting provider as well. So um, got to go really deep in kind of the on-prem traditional stack. But as the M365 became a lot more popular, really started to expand that, and that really mirrors the journey that a lot of organizations take. Right, they went really deep in some of the on-premise technologies and grew into the M365 stack, more virtualization, more modernization, and as that journey continued, Microsoft has started to merge those worlds of the cloud and Azure world with on-premise kind of hybrid cloud technologies. And so that was one of the last things that I got to do with that employer was really dive deep into some of those hybrid scenarios with Azure Stack, HCI, and some of the, how do you run the same type of cloud workloads in your own data center. So that was a lot of fun. Um, that was with kind of my first employer, and so that was where that Microsoft ecosystem started. Now it's transitioned into more of a managing the partnership role, and so I've gotten to get a lot deeper in what does it mean to be a Microsoft partner, and really understanding the partner model and how that model works.
And judging on that, you've obviously gone from hardcore technical person now with still the technical ability, but the business skills too. So you're actually getting involved in the client side. What was the challenge for you pivoting into that space?
Yeah, so part of the challenge is moving from just understanding solutions to applying them at a business level and at a business scale. And so thankfully all along I've kind of grown through this pre-sales type of solutions architect. So that's kind of always been in my background is that pre-sales and solutions architect type of mentality. But the more I've grown, the larger the organizations have been, and the higher up in the food chain I've been talking to people. And so it's gone from, how can I solve this problem technically that we're experiencing, to setting longer term and larger vision with organizations, right? And so that's been the biggest, I guess, challenge, but I feel like I've taken to it is really having a broader vision for the technology stack for organizations, and how does this align with business goals for the organization. So it's not just what's the next shiny gadget, but how does this really deliver business value at a large scale.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I suppose pivoting towards that sort of segues to your company and your role. You talked about your role, but Dynamic Consultants Group. Tell us a bit about that. Tell us a bit about what you do, what you offer, maybe as a USP to other consultancies out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dynamic Consultants Group is a full stack Microsoft consulting firm. And so, what that really means is we do consultancy and projects as well as some support for the full Microsoft stack. So whether that's M365, whether that's infrastructure as a service on Azure or platform as a service on Azure. We do ERP systems with the Dynamics platform. We do kind of low code, no code with the Power Platform and like Dynamics 365 for customer engagement, Power Apps, Power Portals. We do development. So we've got a dev team that's really sharp on like .NET and things like that. We have a PMO, so we're deep into how do we manage these Microsoft projects. And then I mentioned support. We don't do the like traditional help desk thing like tier 1, hey, can you reset my password, or my keyboard's not working. It's really more, we're like the IT team for IT teams. So when your team has gotten too deep on something, or it may even be a bug, we have subject matter experts across the stack that can help to fix that. We've also got a great relationship with Microsoft. So when we say full stack Microsoft, it's really fairly deep across the board. And so that's fun to be a part of, because every person at DCG really ends up growing from the day they come in, because they're exposed to so many different things across the full stack.
Yeah, and that means that they can progress and I suppose go into different areas that maybe they thought they couldn't. And with that in mind, you've obviously talked about what you do, the full stack, without mentioning company names, but what kind of clients would you typically work with and offer benefit to?
Yeah, so our target kind of size is going to be in the medium to enterprise space. So we're no stranger to global enterprises. As far as verticals go, we've worked with a lot of different verticals, so it's hard for me to really kind of narrow down and say, if you're in this vertical, we're going to be a good fit. On the ERP side of things, that's more true, that we've done more like warehouse management and logistics and things like that. But across the full company, I mean, we've worked with insurance brokers, we've worked with financial institutions, we've worked with healthcare, we've worked with, education. So it's a lot. It's very broad, right? So,
and you've obviously worked in the Microsoft stack yourself for how many odd years? You've seen companies go through this transformation now for many years again. Over the last 25 years or so, Microsoft's changed a lot, right? But for you, in your words, what's been the most impactful change that Microsoft has offered?
Yeah, so I think really two things. And the first one is they have enabled some just radical innovation through their build out of a global data center network. So everything that Microsoft does is really powered by this global data center network. It's really the backbone. So whether it's the M365 services like Exchange Online, SharePoint, et cetera, whether it's the low code platforms, it's all really powered by this global data center network that is Azure. So behind the scenes, it's all this really impressive feat of engineering. And the second thing that I think is really impactful that Microsoft has done is they've really renewed their focus on being open. And it feels like they're a lot less about trying to be the only game in town or be the one that has the only solution, and a lot more about just empowering and enabling innovation. And if you go back to the earlier days of Microsoft, Windows itself was one of their selling points was we'll run on anything, right? Yeah. We'll run on x86 processors or PowerPC or whatever. And more recently, with Azure, like, oh, you want to run Linux? Great. There's actually more Linux running on Azure than there is Windows, which is surprising. And so they've really not pigeonholed people into any specific solution, but they've empowered people to build their own solution, use the Microsoft solution, and what have you. So I think that openness has been really helpful to them.
And two questions on the future. One links to this question. So you said their impactful change in the last 25 years. What do you think they're going to do for the next 25 years?
That's a great question. So I see a lot of the Microsoft solutions still converging on that world's computer concept of, whatever it is that you want to do, you can do it on Azure and on this platform that they're building. So I think that's going to be a big component of it. I think some of the big cloud players, Microsoft included as well, are going to continue to lead the way with innovation in areas like quantum and machine learning and things like that would be really difficult to develop yourself, but you can use the platform to develop some really cool solutions. So I think those are a couple of the areas I think we're going to continue to see Microsoft, be really beneficial in.
And let's say you're looking at yourself at 25, and not even yourself. We're looking at people who are 25, new to the industry. They're looking at the Microsoft stack as a really important area for development for them. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so a few different things that I think are really helpful when you're getting started. And the first one I can't stress enough is a home lab. Like, you really need to, and it doesn't have to be physical hardware at your house, but you've really got to get hands-on with this stuff to understand it, to see how it works, play with it. That has made all the difference in my own career, is being able to get hands-on with these technologies and play with them in an environment where you're not afraid you're going to adversely impact somebody's business. If I bring down the internet at my house, for example, my wife may be a little upset with me, but beyond that, nobody's losing their job over that. And so that ability to play with technologies in a safe environment and really feel how they work is so important. The second thing I would say is make connections in the community. That is such an important part of growing personally, to see how other people are doing things, to get advice and feedback, and really just to be on the same growth journey with other people is really, really helpful. The last thing I would say is go deep in something. And I would say maybe that's the most questionable piece of advice I'll give, right? I think there's room for really good generalists, but I think if you want to grow quickly personally in your own career, pick something that's in high demand and go really deep with that first, and you're going to find a lot of opportunity.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. And you mentioned networks. So the last thing is, where can people reach you if they have any questions, want to give any advice? Where's the best place to reach you?
Yeah, so there's a couple different places that you can find me. So the first one is I recently started a blog at richardsoncloud.com. So go check it out, leave some comments. Would love to connect with you on there. I'm on LinkedIn pretty regularly. And the last place that I'm fairly active is there's a couple of Slack communities that I'm pretty active on. One is related to Azure Stack HCI, and the other one is Ask an Azure Architect. So those are the two that I'm fairly active in, and respond to questions on there. So those are great ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure conversing, and yeah, it's been good.
Perfect. Let me just stop.